I have a mentor who I love. If you find him on YouTube, his name is John Berghoff, and he talks about Appreciative Inquiry. And he has a friend who's a singer. His name is Brother James. And once I heard Brother James thank John, and they have this super, super amazing friendship. And I was surprised to find out that it was new. It was like a year to 2 years old that they've been friends. But they seem like brothers. You know, they seem like they've known each other for decades. And they see each other sporadically only. And once Brother James explained, he said, you know, John sporadically would send me pictures of him and the kids in the forest. And I would just get this text message picture saying, this is what we're doing, sending you love or whatever. And he did that, you know, sporadically. And just, he kind of brought, not on Instagram, not on Facebook and stuff, but just a personal text message with a picture of him and his family. And so Brother James is a single guy, like he loved getting those pictures and stuff. And then he would lean in into like, what great, what are you guys doing or whatever. But he kept that connection alive. Like he kept nurturing the relationship with information that is more personal. And so then when they saw each other, they knew that they had soccer, you know, that John was at the soccer game 2 months ago and at this. And so it wasn't like you're catching up and you have so much to share that you don't even share a lot of the stuff that happens. And I think that is another way you can warm up an acquaintance or a relationship that you want to, you know, further each other, but you don't see each other often or you live in different cities. And so including people in your life, but more in a personal way, like a text message or a video. I had a friend, she was going through a hard time. And so me and my kids, we both said, hey, we're in the morning, we just meditated and wanted to send you a loving thoughts and hope you have a good day. And the three of us did this video and she was like, I love this, you know, and she was alone and having a hard time. And it's just that personal touch and just that little extra thing to make it a warmer, deeper connection. You don't have to see each other often. But that relationship, when you do see each other, is you guys are kind of up to date because you've been, you know, putting energy to it with these little warmer touches. And so pictures, video voice messages, video messages are great ways to increase this circle that is close, like that the acquaintance circle. You can make it a warmer circle for you, even if it's, you know, you're more removed and you are the 5 people you hang around with. But what if you had 50 people that are all amazing that knew you and are your inner circle and around the world? Like that would be an amazing kind of network. And then, you know, people help each other all the time. Collaborations would explode and so on. So I think it just takes a little bit of thoughtfulness and a little bit of effort. It actually doesn't take too much time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what we haven't really talked about yet in detail or in any detail, which is a huge one for me, is trying to be better listeners.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about, well, actually, okay, so let's talk about listening.
Because that has been something that I've had to constantly work on. It's transition for me, but I find my connections and the way doors are opening and the way people are responding to me is massively different depending on how well I'm listening in those interactions.
Yeah. So you want to know what I have to say about that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I almost will bring that to energy. So I believe in polarity and masculine and feminine energy that everybody has inside of them. And so I think listening is actually your feminine energy being nurtured and developed. So if you're a good listener, you're able to access your feminine side and be open, accepting, non-judgmental, loving. And if you're not a good listener, you don't have that side developed. And so you may be asking a lot of questions or having an answer as the other person is talking, which is a masculine energy of action and focus and direction. So I think that a lot of people don't have their energies in harmony. So they maybe have the feminine energy developed or the masculine energy developed and the other side, it's not developed. And everybody has this, like men have masculine and feminine energy and women have masculine and feminine energy. And sometimes because of the society that, you know, let's say now women go to work and all that stuff, we have developed a lot of our masculine energy. And sometimes I find that women have a hard time going back to their feminine energy and toggling back and forth. And then I think in the society, more men have their masculine developed, but not their feminine. So we hear like the guy is not in touch with their feminine side.
Yeah.
But if you are, then you have this man that I call the Renaissance man, you know, this man that can be goal-oriented and directed, but also can hear you in kindness and open, and can tell you about his feelings.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is more that could be done to have people understand these two energies and develop them inside of them. And listening is like following or feeling like you want to. It's an accepting and an energy that's open, and it takes some time to develop.
Yeah, if anyone wants to explore into polarity, like masculine, feminine, and the energy, and this book is right here. Actually, I'm going to grab it. It's not just for guys by any means, but the title makes it sound like it's David Data. So Nina knows this.
The Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah, two copies.
You have 2 copies, huh?
So a friend gave this to me, but this book here.
I have the book.
You have it. What did you think, Julie?
I think it's a great book, and I think that men and women should read the book. So both genders, and I have it, and I saw it on, someone recommended it, and I said, you know what, I'm just looking to understand, you know, men, and I think both genders should read that book. It's such a good book. It's got like high reviews, like really good reviews. I thought it was a good understanding of a different perspective on different things. It's a lot of people like that book. I have it.
Oh yeah. Okay. So here in the back of the book, they also have, I don't know if you guys can see there, Dear Lover. And so Dear Lover is the feminine. It's the book he wrote for women. Can you see that? The Women's Guide to Men's Sex.
See if it will focus. There you go. Kind of.
Well, it's David Data. So if you look at David Data's book, there's The Way of the Superior Man, which is written for men. And then there's Dear Lover, which is written for women. And it explains the feminine energy and all that stuff. It's the counter to this one, or like the other side.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with Julie. Like, I recommend that you read this one, but I also recommend men to read both, the Dear Lover as well, which is the one for women.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, because then you can understand how to develop your feminine energy.
Right.
And this one, for me, when I read it, I read it again, like Julie, curiosity. I thought, what is he telling the men? I want to know. Because if he's telling the men something, I want to know. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my God, this was great for even me and finding my purpose. And so I read it and I enjoyed it, and it helped me develop my masculine energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely had at least 2 or 3 women talk about this book themselves. Yeah, if you haven't read it, they're recommending it to me. So it's an incredible book. Because I love the subjects of polarity, and I know in here I think it talks about like us all, you know, striving for everyone's equal in the world, and equal rights and everything. But that's not the same as the masculine energy and the feminine energy being equal. We're not trying to strive to be equal. We need the polarity. That's what makes everything stunning and beautiful, right?
Right. Well, I look at it as charges. If you have 2 positive charges, they repel each other. 2 negative charges repel each other. You need a positive pole and a negative pole. And so you need that to actually have it work. Yeah. And what one of the things I do in my coaching is help people toggle between the masculine energy and the feminine energy, because we kind of get stuck in one for a while. And if you don't toggle, then you don't listen. You're talking. This is what I'm doing right now, right? Yeah.
Well, I find this applies a lot to dates as well. Like, I remember people talking about dates. So, like, a lot of people have talked about how dates are exhausting and tiring, and you just end up, it could be like an interview. We've talked about this before. Like, you go and then you answer your questions. What do you do? Where do you work? What do you want to be when you do this and that? And it's the interview process. And that's a great example where, for me, like, the polarities, there is no polarity. It's just like, here's the process we're going through. We're just, like, it's so mundane. There's no, I don't know if it's that book or another, but they talk about the dance of back and forth. Here's my energy. I'm like almost in your space a little bit, or in your energy, and then it bounces back the other way. And then that's the game, like the fun part of it, not the organized game part of it that people will talk about of trying to get together, but more the bouncing back and forth of energy is what can make a date so magical, right?
Right.
but not an interview.
Yeah, an interview is very masculine,
right.
and also the kind of question you're asking could be a very masculine. So I believe that behaviors can be masculine or feminine, and it's not the behavior, it's how you approach the behavior. So I can ask a question in a masculine way, and I can ask a question in a feminine way, and so the question itself is not masculine or feminine, it's just how I do it. And also the type of question will lead to a masculine answer or a feminine answer. So if I say, you know, tell me one of your first experiences in Vancouver, that is a feminine question because it's open. You can go anywhere. You can tell me about the bar or the working out or the city or the people. You can go anywhere. But if I ask you, like, do you walk to work? Then that's a masculine question because it has one answer. You either walk or you skip or you run. Like, it's not very, I mean, unless you're versed on how to change that to a feminine story. You know, I would change that. If somebody asked me that, I would say, are you going to come with me? Like, is this why you want to know? And then I would change it with humor into a more open face, you know. Yeah. But if you're not well versed or fluent in how to do that, then you answer that question and it's done. It's a masculine kind of answer, and you're done with that energy there. And so behaviors, how you tell a story can be masculine or feminine. How you flirt can be masculine or feminine. You know, I can say, like, right out, I really like you, and that let's go and do something there. Or I can say, like, oh, you know, you're making me blush, and that still is flirting. I'm actually blushing right now as I'm trying to flirt with you guys on Zoom. And so the other one was more predatory, which is masculine, and whereas the one of I'm blushing because you're so cute is still flirting and hitting on each other, but it's more relaxed and not so pouncing on the person. So even flirting can be masculine and feminine. Yeah. And I think a good date will be toggling so that you're a little masculine, a little feminine, and not a little bit of each, but like full 100% masculine, 100% feminine. So you go and you ask a question, that's great. And then you listen really attentively and engaged, and you're fully in the feminine, and then you might smile or laugh, and so on. So toggling is one of the things that I think needs people need help with. They might not know how to do them. Does that make sense to you guys? Because polarity is a huge issue. It's a huge kind of a unknown. How do you create polarity? How do you do that?
So I know we've been talking a lot about dating stuff, but it's everything. Like, it's how we connect to anyone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even flirting doesn't have to be someone you're necessarily attracted to. That is, it's that energy playing again with just anyone that is fun, and it makes you feel alive. Right? I
get constantly made fun of by my boyfriend on how when I try to make a new friendship, I get so excited because the person is engaging, and they're like, "Oh, are you going on a date?" And so I'm like, "Yes, I'm going on a friend date." So we make fun because dating is not just dating. It's kind of like the rules of engagement of deepening relationships. So yes, it could be in dating, it could be in business, it could be with your kids. Like, so many times I have to figure out how to convince my kids that this is a good idea that they make their bed. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Talking to kids, connection skills is huge for the kids. I've seen that development. Me and Callie's connection is deeper than it's ever been, which is so valuable. That's the most valuable thing you can have as a parent. Especially when I predict how she's going to be as a teenager.
And how Callie connects with other people. I find that she's very comfortable. Yeah. And that's because she feels secure in this connection with you.
Yeah, we'll actually talk about eye contact a lot. So if I catch her saying, someone will give her a compliment about something, and if she doesn't say thank you with eye contact, like, I call it out every single time. But just so that's essential thing, is that eye contact to be built in to her growing up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to give her that choice to not do it. But I forgot one point. So you keep going. I know you have a few more talking points.
No problem. But you said you wanted to bring. What did he just bring up?
It was something about dating, but I've
let's
lost my train.
Let's talk about dating.
I know. I want to bring this up because this keeps on popping into my head, and a few ladies have talked to me about it. I've had a couple of women that we've hung out with, and she's like, "Oh, I met my boyfriend. I was the driver. Like rather than give signals or body language or anything, and just hoping if I'm attracted to someone, that guy will come over. Then she was like, no, I just walk straight up to a guy I'm interested in and start the conversation. So I want to know, is this a good thing for women to do more of this? And I know it's more of the masculine role of driving forward, but a lot of guys are not very good at this, and they actually will be really into someone, and they'll just miss the opportunity. So is it a good idea?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question, because I have kind of different answers depending on the situation, but at the same time, so we know that biologically the masculine energy wants to chase and wants to go for and go and do some action. And if you come with that energy and the feminine, the women or whoever approaches and does that, then the other person doesn't get that opportunity. And so sometimes that is depolarizing. So it'll be flattering for the guy. They'll be like, oh, that girl just asked me out. But then there's no instinct or drive to pursue that person sometimes for some men. So I can't generalize, but for some men, they like the chase. And when that is taken away from them, it doesn't work. But it doesn't mean that women shouldn't approach. So I think that there's a way that you can do it. And I call it, threading and creating the opportunity. So you can start initiating what I do is let's say we'll have a conversation and I'll say something like, so I want this guy to ask me out, let's say, and so I'll start talking and I'll say like, have you been to Grouse Mountain? And then he might be like, yeah, like we can roll for that. The point is that so the person might be like, no, and so I'll say, oh, I've never been there, and I leave that moment of like silence. Oh, I've never been there. And that creates the opportunity for the person to go into his masculine and be like, well, let's go together. And then they ask me out. But I wanted them to ask me out. And so who asked each other? I created the opportunity.
The silence and the opportunity.
Which the silence is the feminine energy. And so what happens, that invites the masculine energy to jump in. But if I did everything, let's say if I said, oh, I love Grouse Mountain, you've been there, let's go. Yeah. That might work. Too that might not work. It might. Depending, see, for him, it says it's too much, right? So for this guy, it's too much. He might want to be pursuing. And so, but for some people, they're like, that was so great. I liked her the moment she asked me out and did that, right? So it depends. It depends on the people. So I usually do a test. And so I'll see, like, is this person want to pursue or not? And if he doesn't jump on that and I really want to date that person, then I will do another step further. And I'll say, like, why don't we go together? And so on. So, but I do try to leave the opportunity for the other person to get into their masculine and jump in. So does that answer the question?
Completely, yeah. I love that approach.
Yes, question over here. Edison.
First of all, I love this. Thank you so much for sharing. I've heard of masculine energy, feminine energy, and I kind of, I have an idea, decent understanding of it, but I love how you're just sharing examples and to make it a little clearer for me to understand. And I think for myself, I'm pretty balanced in the energies. And so I find to be able to balance it when somebody else, right, I'll play the other role typically, right, to create a better experience together. And so I love how, because as you're explaining this, I'm like, oh, because when I was young, in my 20s, I was a huge flirt. but in a good way. It was never to lead them on. I think it was just to create some positive, amazing magic, right? But as you're explaining all this, I'm like, I'm realizing what I was doing back then, right? Because as just like some girls, they would create the opportunity, right? Which I love, and then I would just step into it. Then other times, women would be more upfront. Then I would just be more, I would shift the other way to create that experience together and then just see where it goes, right? But having you explain it that way, I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing. That was so great share. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And sometimes, it is depolarizing. So if somebody comes on too strong and, it will not work, right? Sometimes, because you can't have too negative, right? Too masculine and masculine. And it happens, I see it in the dancing all the time, two people trying to lead. And I was like, you guys aren't going anywhere, And then I also see it where nobody wants to take an action. And so it's like, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? I can do anything. Well, I can do anything too. And then you guys are not deciding what you're going to do. And that's one of those that frustrates me. I'm just like, one of us has to get into the masculine.
So you talk about dancing. So I want to share, like, when I go through, it went from like zero dancing at 38 or 9-ish, basically when I broke off from my marriage. I'm like, oh, I have no dance experience whatsoever. I have to learn something. Like, I can't go through life with not exploring this. So went to salsa lessons, tango, hip hop, actually. And that world was incredible for accelerating everything we're talking about in connection. Mm-hmm. Like, the dance world takes you through the whole journey of connection very, very quickly. Like, you go in, like, my first salsa lesson actually wasn't with you. It was with a guy in the middle of Vancouver there, and on the middle level in Granville Street there. And I can't remember.
Roger or Javier?
No, not Roger or those two.
Sebastian.
But I can't remember their
There's
names
many.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just a couple of guys. And anyway, he was like, oh, so you haven't done any salsas? So I was straight away from one half of the room. They had the curtain. He took me behind the curtain the other side. So then next minute I was dancing with this really awesome gay guy. And he was super, super close to me, and which was fantastic. But he was like doing all sorts of really cool moves with me while I was learning my salsa for the first time. And all I was thinking was, oh, I'm diving in the deep end. This is a beautiful, awesome experience. And I kept going back to these salsa classes all over, with yours as well, and different types of dance. And I realized very quickly, and this is the place to get embarrassed, and it's a complete comfort zone, not comfort zone, like a welcoming environment to just go all out, especially hip hop and things like that. You have to go all out and embarrass yourself. And if you stand at the back and don't, then you just won't get anywhere, and no one will really interact with you. So they do things like pause the music and, okay, go speak to someone new, go speak to a stranger. Like, every 5 minutes they do that. Nice. And I love this because you come out of those classes and you feel just alive, full of the energy of the room. And I find dance has taught me, like, the quickest way to work on so many of these social skills. And you know, I feel like it's a never-ending journey, but compared to 3 years ago, like, I was the shy guy. So yeah.
Well, believe it or not, I'm shy too. But because of my dance background and so on, I have learned to be able to be comfortable in some scenarios. When I do travel, sometimes I don't say a word to anybody. I'm just like quiet. So, but dancing is a physical way to understand what we're telling you right now. And you may understand it here, but when you are dancing with each other and you notice that that connection is not working, it is so obvious that you're like, something's wrong here. Yeah. And to fix it, my opinion is that to create more energy, you have to lean into it. So yes. For us in dancing, we have 3 axes. We have one person, then the other person, and then your connection, that's the third axis. And so we say 1 + 1 = 3. And the third is like another entity that requires both of you to put equal amount of energy to build that relationship and move together as one. And so when it's off, it's so obvious. And usually one person is pulling away, or both of them are pulling away, or one person is going over too much and the other one doesn't know how to deal with it too much. So dancing is a very physical way, visceral way to understand connection. Yeah. And so I recommend it. Tango is much slower, so you can really go deep into it. Salsa is much faster. And so, yeah, there's just day and night, 2 different ways to understand connection. And once you do dancing, you realize, oh, how I interacted in that dance is how I interact in conversations with my mom, with my kids, or how I deal with a challenge. You know, I back away first and then maybe I lean in. Or I go too far, I lose my balance.
Yeah. And since it's swing dancing as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, I remember specifically your tango lessons. I went to kizomba lessons at D2 as well. And both of those are very close and all about being very much in sync, right? Almost where you're breathing as one. Yeah. And close proximity, especially kizomba's like right here.
Yeah.
And so to go in and dance with a stranger, and then you rotate around with different partners, and now you're very quickly interacting with multiple strangers, and like from a very close proximity and breathing together, it's just like it's a magical world, honestly, that you're dancing well and what you learn through that.
And as a human connection, you're releasing oxytocin as you're touching, and it's really great. But if you go into the dating world, if you do a dance class or a group environment, so one of my tips for connecting with people is to do, for dating connection, is to do a group class, a book club, a fitness class, running, dancing, because you eliminate the whole I'm going on a date here, and then you can see right away when you're meeting the people if there's chemistry or not. If they say after the first 5 seconds, you know if there is a connection or chemistry. And I find that people wait too much on the online dating, going through the messaging and stuff, to actually see that 5 seconds. You want to do that as soon as possible so that you can either say next or be like, okay, let's further this relationship. But dancing, right, you don't even have to have the pressure of dating, and you can interact with 20 people, and in the connection with each people, you'll realize, oh, I like dancing with this person. Why? Well, because there is chemistry there. There's some energy that is working together, and it's good. And so then you can go to the next level and maybe have a conversation. Yes, that is.
I had a question. So you talked about how a lot of people spend a lot of time with the online dating, messaging back and forth. It's better if you just meet up and within the first minute you'll know, right? If there's a connection. How about a video chat beforehand? Do you think that's good enough and you don't even need to meet up, or do you think? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. And so yeah, I don't. So the meeting in person for me is somebody that I feel that there's a yes every step of the way as I further the connection. So, but I really quickly take it out of text into voice or video messaging. And then I see, like, if I send a video message, do they send a video message back? Are they equally committed or engaged? If I send a voice message, they send a voice message back. And so if they do, and I like what they say, and I like how they look, or I like how the energy is in the video, then I move them to Zoom. And then I'll be like, let's Zoom. And if we can have a really good conversation and I feel awesome about that interaction, then I will say, let's do an activity outside in the real world. I don't go for dinner or lunches or let's go for a talk. No, let's do something together, because what I'm trying to do, what we want to do is get away from the whole, this is who I am and and just be real. And when you're doing an activity like dance or golf or mini golf or whatever, like, you make mistakes. How does he react or she react when he's making a mistake? You
just be yourself more.
You can be yourself. And so I want to see them in the interaction. Let's go grocery shopping together. And I did a date like that. I said, I have to go grocery shopping. Do you want to join me? And I said, I'm really fast because I have my kid at home and my babysitting is ending in 15 minutes. And I said, do you want to meet me? Let's go grocery shopping. And I said, it's a whirlwind for me kind of grocery shopping. We'll do fast. And he was so surprised. And he was That's like, awesome. And it was great. Yeah, it was a great time. And he got to see me more like reality, Yeah. And so that's how I progress the relationship. And so if it's yes, 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 then I move it forward. But as soon as there's like a no, so they didn't video message or whatever, I don't invest that much more time then, because they're not willing to invest. And so I'm looking for somebody that's increasing the level of connection as much as I am. And so we're putting the same amount of energy. The moment that's broken, that connection is breaking down.
I love that.
And so
you
then I
describe that so well.
Right, and I don't go on dates. I don't waste my time with dates that are not going to work. My time is valuable, so I don't want to go meet you if we cannot have a conversation. If like your picture does not match who you are, right?
Thank you so much. That's so good. Because I'm similar to Dave. I'm not much of a online dating app type of person. It's like I want to get to know you, feel the energy, is there kind of chemistry connection. And so just you kind of put in that step, it makes so much sense. And yeah, I'm going to definitely take that as a takeaway. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And then when I do have them in person on Zoom and stuff, the kind of questions I ask are definitely not the interview questions. So I don't ask them, so what are your hobbies? I say I say things like, what was the funniest thing that happened to you in your last workout? And so they're like, well, I fell or whatever. Like, I want to know more about who they are. Do I want to know if they work out or not? Yeah, but that's just a quick question. So I don't spend my time. If they say, I don't work out, as I'm asking them about this funny thing that happened to them in their latest workout, then that answers the question already. Does that make sense? And so, but I want to know more like you, who are you? And these questions that we sometimes ask that are so, well, sometimes they're really bad. Like one question I got from a client who said they went on a date, and this is the question they got asked. The lady said, "What do you do with your discretionary income?" That was the question on the date. And so, of course, like after he didn't know how to answer that, because he's like,
it'd be funny if someone asked that.
Yeah. And he's like, I started thinking like, how do I spend my money? What did I do? And he was like nervous and stuff. And I thought, wow, that is such a bad question. You can ask the same thing with like, what was the latest thing you bought that you loved? And somebody might say like, I bought rocks, I bought this, like, right? Like, and that's how they're spending the discretionary income. Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So in the questions, I also find out if they're the kind of people that I want to hang out with, and then we'll hang out in person if they're interesting and they find me interesting too.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. So are you guys, let's just pull the room. Is everybody single here or dating? What's the status? Single?
Yeah, single.
Yeah, I'm single.
Single and loving it.
And I just want to chip in and talk about something where you talked about the polarity and you talked about masculine and feminine. So this is what I do when I'm dating. I open the door wide open and I give hints, but I don't do the first move. So for the first kiss, I want the masculine energy, so the guy, to step up and come in and get the first kiss. But I'll give hints and stuff like that, right? But I'm gonna open the door right open. But I don't want to overstep that. I still think, I know it's 2021, it could be old fashioned, but I want to stay in my feminine energy, and I just want to, I don't know, I just love waiting for that masculine energy to come in and just come in and get the first kiss, you know. But I'm gonna give a lot of hints. That's just what I do. About the dating, Nina, what you said, like, it was so good about the stepping up the different levels.
Yeah.
So you'll test it, you'll increase it, and then, you know, you'll send like a voice message. Are they responding back? Are they sending a voice message back? You know, I love that, you know, to see how they're responding. And yeah, it's great. It's amazing. It's like really helpful, because sometimes there are things that you're saying and I'm questioning. I'm like, did I do that? Yeah, I did receive a voice message. Did I respond back right away with a voice message? Because I love receiving them, right? So it's true. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And if there's synergy, then they will also do the escalate. Like, I'm not always escalating. If there is synergy and harmony, then I send a voice message or a voice video, and or I don't, let's say, talk for a day or two, and then they'll call me. And so they won't text me, they'll call me. And so that's a different level of engagement.
Right.
And I choose to answer or not, depending on what I'm doing. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to add to Julie's point as well, because from the guy's side.
Yes.
So from what I've seen, what I've observed is a common scenario will be guys will go through marriage, and then marriage will break up. And then, like all of us, like the guys and the women, that we just like fall out of the marriage and think, what the hell? Like, how do I interact with other people again? How do I go and speak to a stranger? How do I go and speak to someone I'm attracted to? Like, no one gets taught this stuff at school. And right. Especially, I was saying especially guys, but I don't know. But guys are not very good at it. Like, we don't know what we're doing, right? So I would just say it's like a really good thing. Like, I started to learn about this area a lot more, so that I could interact with people better. Not just to, like, I don't really do it these days to even find women to date or anything like that, because like, I like my single time. I'm on my mission right now. I like it, but I want to get so much better at interacting forever. Like, no matter whether it's with my daughter or whoever. So I would strongly recommend for any guys to, you know, read David Data's books and as many books as you can. Just get better at it, because, you know, no one's taught this stuff. And then there'll be like Julie, and like Julie's giving hints, and like a lady's giving hints, and the guy is like, we don't know what we're doing, right? So now it becomes like really confusing from both sides of what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But the more we can get better at this, as guys as well, don't be afraid to learn skills in this area as guides. Like, there's nothing bad about us wanting to connect with many, many people a lot better. In fact, it's beautiful, right?
Definitely. I just want to add to that. Thank you, Dave. I find myself sometimes I'm completely blind to these so-called hints. And so, honestly, only looking back, I'm like, you liked me back then? I'm like, I was completely clueless.
Yeah.
And
which is almost all of us, right? We no one learns this in school, how to connect, how to listen. So of course we're going to be blind to this.
But the funny thing is, when the girl told me later on, and I look back, I'm like, oh, I guess it was kind of obvious. When I look back, but when I was in it, it was just, I was completely like, oh, why didn't you say something? I thought it was pretty obvious. I'm like, okay, when I think about it now, yes, it is. But at that time, it wasn't obvious to me. I was completely blind, and
Me too. Yeah, and so much, old Dave, new Dave. Like, old Dave is looking for words, right? Or looking for something obvious. And now I'm trying to read like the energy in a room, or the energy of the person, and the intentions underneath the words. I think Mark Manson described it like this. So and that self-awareness of yourself, of what's going on, and you can use that everywhere you go in your environment to kind of read the room, read the energy of the people, and that's just another amazing habit that you can practice over and over again. Of like, sometimes you could go into a bar at happy hour.
At happy hour.
and I'm usually on the way to a salsa lesson. I'm not just going to hang out.
So you come drunk? What?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to drink before my salsa. I just like, looking at a couple in the corner and figuring out what's going on. Like, is it a first date, second date, and are they a married couple? Are they usually both on their phones, avoiding each other? And it's not nice to see, obviously, but when you can kind of read environments and people wherever you go, it's like starting to feel like a superpower. I was going to say, like, special power when you start to read energy. And the more you're aware of it, like Edison, you were saying, like, you won't miss these subtle things anymore. Once you start to get more and more aware of it, and it feels like magical when you can have that connection. I went out on a date recently, and I love that date so much. It was an old girlfriend, and she'd come back, and we got back together very, very briefly. It wasn't meant to be, the timing or whatever, but the way our communication was unbelievable. Like, we just got together for to sit by the water and grab sushi together. And she's a lot younger than me, but our connection,
juicy details.
Yeah. But I think I've talked about her before, but our connection was unbelievable. Like, so to the point of, well, I'm feeling exactly like this. And she was like, well, I'm feeling exactly like that. Like, okay, what do we do now? It was the easiest situation ever. And then a week later, it didn't really work out. She told me, like, super, super real and authentically, how overwhelmed everything is right now. So it was just this magical experience of, like, the most transparent communication, and I loved it. And it made everything so easy. And we always appreciate, we say to each other, okay, it's not meant to be, but I've never had this kind of communication before. It's amazing.
It's amazing, right? When you can, and I was going to say, the hints are only, I consider them hints if you actually get the result. So when I say I create the opportunity for people to ask me out, then I am hinting, but I'm not hinting, like, I'm just creating the opportunity, and then that happens, then it works. Because if the hint doesn't get the result, it's not a hint, right? It's not working. So I hear a lot of guys saying, oh, I didn't know. And sometimes I think women need to allow for the pauses or the silence. And when you do that, you don't have to do any hinting, because just that space will create the next moment. So like a pregnant pause sometimes is very effective. But people are so afraid of silence sometimes. And I coaching my clients, sometimes I observe them while they're Zooming on a date. So I'm on the side, and they're on a date on Zoom, and I I can tell that the client goes right into the masculine energy because of that discomfort of being silent first. And so if they ask the first question, they're in the masculine energy, and then they end up interviewing their Zoom date. And my coaching is just say hi and just smile and kind of wait a second, that 1 second, and then he might ask you a question. But if you ask a question first, then you're in the lead role right now, and you're in the masculine. And well, soon you need to go back out of that and into the feminine, or else he's going to feel like this is an interview, you know. And so my coaching is like, get out of the masculine for a moment and just be silent and see what happens. But obviously not like, but silent with a smile. And yeah, and it's uncomfortable. And so one of the things I want to say about dating and online dating and any kind of dating is that, so the platform, if you find someone, you move it forward, but also the platform is a great place to create friendships and practice this kind of conversation. And you guys don't seem like you have any issues with conversing to people, but some people have a lot of trouble talking and actually figuring out what to say.
Yeah.
And my coaching to those clients are like, well, get online dating and start 10 conversations, and do not worry about this is the one. Try to make friends and try to further these conversations so that you get good at talking. And when you meet someone that you really are like, whoa, you're able to have that conversation, not be tongue twisted and not, you know, come out not as yourself. And so practicing is so important. And I think people forget. And so because they're so focused on finding the one, that they're like missing out on just even creating friendships out there and having conversations with people and meeting people. Like I know people won't go on dates because they're looking at the thing like not compatible. And I'm like, well, how do you know? Like you just saw this profile, and I'm like, why don't you, if you're not very good at dating, go on many dates, you know, and get that practice so that you're ready to have an amazing date with somebody that you're really interested in. And just not wasting other people's time, go in there with the interest of creating a friendship. And so then if there's that, then you can have more friends, right?